Welcome to the Manhood Podcast. I'm your host, Bob Mann. If you are a father, you know a father, you have a father, you want a better relationship with your father, this is where you should be listening. In the background, you hear Sounds of Blackness with Brother Eric Moore covering there on the drums, and you've heard him before on some of the stuff we've used on the podcast. Bad man on those drums. Today I have a guest for you. This brother has an interesting fatherhood story to tell, and I try and bring you brothers who have those stories. Good brother who came from some peculiar circumstances, and I'll let him tell his story as where he came from and where he is today. And I'm really proud of the man that he is today. This is Brother Demarco James. Say hello to the folks here.
Hello, everybody. How you doing out there in manhood land? That's all I'm going to say.
So, Demarco, I always start out asking everybody about their own father. Okay? And what was it like growing up as a kid? What was the relationship you had with your dad? What influence did they have on you?
Well, the thing is with my dad, it was interesting because I looked at him as a man. You see the mustache, the hair, my dad was a lot darker than me.
Okay.
And so we played a lot of music in the house. So only people I remember resonating him with was with music people, because we listened to so much music in my house.
Okay.
And I was just like, why are we listening to so much music? Only to find out that my dad is a lineage of a music guy.
Okay.
So when I look at him, I used to look at like Eddie DeVere Sr. Or somebody like that.
Okay.
Or even when I look at his structure, I would compare him to, that's how my dad looks.
Right.
That's what it was. So that was the first thing. The second thing, what it was like growing up with him is that I knew that what a structure of a man felt like, you know, the energy of a man felt like.
Okay. Yeah.
So those are the things that I seen early in understanding the dynamics of being a man and being a dad.
Right.
And he taught me not to stand up for yourself. So those are the things that I learned early.
Okay. And you'll see in one of the earlier episodes, we talked with a brother who said his father was not in his life, and he didn't have that stance. He really did not know or really understand the power he had as a man and his stature and everything. Big, strong brother, but shied away from being bold, being brash, because he didn't have his father in his life. So you did have a father who was able to display all of those things to you. What else can you tell us about your dad?
One of the things that on the weekends, that he would drink his little bit of beer, smoked his, at the time, I'm going to say how they said it back then, smoked his reefer. So I seen that, and I used to like the smell of the reefer. Cigarettes, I ain't like the smell of, but I liked it. I said, what's that smell? And one of the things I remember early about those things is that on the weekends when the music would play, I would be in there and we'd be in there dancing. But that also is something that was just in my house.
Right.
Even when my father wanted to communicate with my mom, what he would do was play a song. Like I can remember when the Isley Brothers Between the Sheets album came out.
Okay.
He played it in the house, right? So we in there, and him and my mom were going through, and his song would be like, "Here We Go Again." That would be his song that he would play. And it got to the point
he
that...
got good taste.
Yeah, so he was playing "Here We Go Again" and drinking and listening to his songs. And then one day I remember... like he playing there, and him and my mom was arguing. And she said, "I don't want to hear that song no more. Don't play that song today. It ain't working." And I thought that was the funniest thing. Yeah. But always had music. I remember one of the other first albums was George Clinton. Okay. Not even knowing George Clinton was from Plainfield. Right. But I remember these people. I remember Sugar Hill Gang. I remember all of this music being played at my house. Yeah. Early. You know.
Yeah. That's important. Like my kids, I'll be with them and they're listening to music from the 80s, early 80s. None of them were born in the early 80s.
Okay.
But today, they will listen to that music. They know the words and everything else. And they're like, that's because, Dad, you played that music around the house.
Yeah.
That's what we remember.
Yeah.
Now, we talked a little bit the other day, and you mentioned something happened when you were 10 years old.
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
So, so that's when I discovered. So I'm in the park playing basketball with my boys, and this guy comes over. He says, "Marco." Now, even at 10, you like, listen, stranger danger, you know.
Right.
So Marco. So I'm like, you calling me now? This guy's muscular. He got BBD shirt on. He's riding a BMX bike, and he got on a pair of Pumas.
Okay.
And I like Pumas.
Yeah.
That's my sneaker.
Okay.
So I go over and I said, yeah. So we started talking. He said, you know who I am? I said, nah. He said, I'm Ronnie. I said, oh, you my Uncle Sid's brother.
Okay.
He said, but do you know who I am to you? And I said, nah. Who you to me?
Yeah.
Now, at 10, you think about it now when you look at a 10-year-old. 10-year-old still mentally not developed.
Right.
So at that time, I'm not figuring it out that this is the man that's going to tell me he's my father. Because I would never think that my mother would have lied to me about anything.
Okay.
You get what I'm saying?
So the man, it was your dad playing the music in the house, was not your biological father.
Right.
And you didn't know this.
I didn't know that.
Until he rode up to you on the bike. And you remember everything he was wearing that day.
I remember everything. It was a burgundy. Wow. I like burgundy. He had a burgundy shirt on. He had some leaves, and he was dressed fly, and he had waves. Yeah. And I was like, yo, the craziest thing, though, is that prior to that, I heard a story from my father's mother.
Okay.
So it kind of was like you know how you get the introductory to the book before you actually read it? Right. That's what happened. And so still that didn't click until after.
Okay.
So he's telling me, so I said, well, you my uncle's brother. He said, I said, so you my uncle? He said, and I'm like, I know this guy is not going to tell me he's my father. I know he's not going to, because my mother would have told me. Right. She told me everything.
Right.
So I'm like, okay. So finally when he told me, I remember he left because he let me ride the bike. I said, yo, this is a dope bike. Can I ride? Let me ride it. Then, he told, he didn't really say it. Yeah. He said, I'm your FATHER. And then I said, my father? Just like that, like my father? And I was like, okay. It was weird because my uncle Sid used to be at my dad's mother's house. Okay. And then my aunt, which was my father's sister, had a baby by my dad's first cousin.
Oh boy.
So and you would say in this space, like, how does that happen? Right. How does that happen? Yeah. How and it's like what people understand, God intricately designs things to happen so you have clues. Yeah. I understand that now. Right. I didn't understand it then. Right. I understand it now.
So what you this man told you that he was your father, and did you go back and talk to your mother?
So it's a funny thing. So I was shocked, and I remember just running like I'm Forrest Gump. Okay. I ran. Yeah. So my boy was like, yo, D, who was that? I'm like, yo, this dude told me he my father? He said, you ain't never know that? I said, man, I ain't never know that. Yeah. So now I said, man, I got to go upstairs and talk to my mother. So he said, well, what you going to say? I'm going to say the guy came and he said he was my father, but I ain't going to tell her that he said that. I'm going to say something else. Okay. So I go upstairs. We in the hood, but I don't think we in the hood. My mom never made us feel like we was in the hood. Right. And so I went upstairs. I said, hey, Mom. She said, what? It was only me and her in the house. My brother, they wasn't there. Yeah. Said, I met somebody today. So she said, who you met? I said, I met this guy. His name was Ronnie. And she said, and what he say to you? And I said, He said he was related to me. So she looking at me and he said, and what he say to you? I said, he said he was my uncle.
Okay.
And then she said, he ain't ish to you. He ain't ish to you.
Okay.
And at that very moment, I knew it was the very first time that I know for sure that my mother lied, outright lied to me. And then I remember we had 2 bathrooms, so it was an apartment, it was a hallway.
Right.
I went into the first bathroom, and I remember closing the door, and I remember yelling in the mirror in my kid voice, like not letting her hear me. You.
Oh, wow.
But I put the, UCK behind it as a kid. And I'm like, you liar. And I mean, I was enraged and red. And and so when that happened, I was just like, my mother, so this is really my father. This is really my father.
Yeah, yeah. And, and I mentioned to you the other day, Kurt Franklin tells a similar story.
Yeah.
And he only, within the last year or so, had a test done and showed that this man was his actual father. Went to his mother with that information, and she said, no, it's not. That man is lying. Did another test, came back exactly the same way. I believe it was 99%. And the mother still says. So there are some things, his mother was very young at the time when she had him and, gave him up for adoption and everything because she was so young. She may have blocked it out of her mind who it was. Do you think something like that might have been going through your mother's mind, that she lied to you on purpose, or what was her reasoning behind it?
So here's the thing. My mother had me, she was 15 when she had
15
so she
was young
when
too.
she had me.
Yeah.
And she had me out of a sense of not having a mother.
Okay.
I feel.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but she said to me, finding out she was pregnant with me, that she was going to give me the love that she never had. I remember that. And she always resonates me as her special kid.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
That's
weird.
beautiful.
Sorry,
Yeah.
Hakeem, Samin, Shakila, but I'm the special kid. And not because of dementia, but I'm special.
Listen, my father's is one of 15 kids. I probably have over 60 cousins. And I would tell my grandmother all the time I was her favorite grandchild. Okay, so I know where you're coming from. Okay, and there was at least 60 of them. But let's go back to finding that out.
Right.
A couple of things. One, it sounds like your mother had some trauma in her life growing up. Something we forget. Well, I don't even think about as kids is that our parents were kids at one time too, and their parents were inexperienced in raising kids also. They only perpetuated what they learned from their parents or what they saw. And it sounds like your mother, has some things going on, not having her mother in her life. You came along and fulfilled a void in her life, which was a beautiful thing. But I want to go back to when you find out this man is your father, your mother told you this fib, and how did that change you?
Man, so it wasn't necessarily the fact that I found that I had a father. It was the fact that my mother lied that changed me. And I'll get into that. So as a kid, I was getting bullied a lot, getting beat up. And then I started boxing. My mother got tired of me getting black eyes. I was this kid. So people see my nose is broke, right? It didn't get broke from boxing. It got broke from fighting in the street by a bully that I stood up to.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah, that I finally decided to stand up to. It's a weird thing. I remember the guy's name and everything. I got a very vivid memory of everything. I can remember everything.
Okay.
So the thing was, I was becoming a boxer. My mother said, "You're not going to get beat up no more." Not understanding that my dad was a fighter, and his brothers was fighters.
Okay.
I never knew this.
Your biological.
My biological.
Okay.
Yeah, my father.
Okay.
Yeah. He was like a fighter.
Yeah.
And let it be told, he was feared. Him and his brothers was feared.
Okay.
And as a kid, you growing up, you hearing this story, but now the magnitude of that, and from where I came from, small hood in Jersey City, I'm like, yo, so these men people was scared of them.
Yeah.
And it made, so when that happened, all the rage came out of me. And I said, I'm not taking nobody beating me up no more. Okay. That's why I stood up to my bully.
Yeah.
My bully was, he was my age, 13, he was 10, but he looked like he was 15.
Okay.
So imagine, he 10 years old, he was a real life Debo.
Right.
And I said, nah, I'm not taking this no more.
Yeah.
I'm a fight him. And I remember beating slipping punches.
Okay.
I remember catching him, and then he let me get it off. And that Easter weekend, I'm in the store playing the game, and he said, "What's up now?" He cracked me in my face, and I mean, my face was so swollen. But long story short, the reason why that happened is because of that rage. But after that, nobody ever beat me up ever again.
Okay.
At 11 and a half.
So that was a real turning point.
That was a turning
from
point.
being bullied to now, taking on that bully and not taking no shorts from nobody.
Right. No shorts from nobody. I'm talking about beating up guys that they be like, yo, you beat him up?
Yeah.
This guy know how to fight him?
Yeah.
You remember, like, I'm a movie buff. You remember in Carlito's Way when Benny Blanco came and the guy said, Carlito, he's you 20 years ago. And Carlito said, never me. Never me. Nah, you got the wrong guy.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened with me.
Okay.
I literally, and it got to the point where my mother said, we're going to move out of this hood because if you stay here, you're going to turn out just like your father. You're going to be a raving maniac.
Okay.
But it resonated something in me, which I can't describe or fathom, but later down the line, finding I had other brothers and sisters.
Okay.
Even now, finding out that I had another brother, it was like Simba looking in the water and recognizing he was the Lion King.
Okay. That's powerful. That's powerful right there. Knowing who your biological father was gave you a whole new vibrato, a whole new brashness about yourself. Right. Okay. That's bold. A whole new boldness about you. Now, you mentioned siblings. We talked the other day. Your biological father had other kids. Yes, right? Yes. And so tell me about that.
So I grew up in the house with a brother next to me, a sister, and then a baby brother. Okay. But then I got
no. So those were from your mother and your dad.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yep. That was from my mother and my dad, who I didn't know.
Right.
But I always felt different from them.
Okay.
DNA wise.
Right. Did you look different?
No, we kind of all look alike.
Okay.
It's weird because I look like them from my mother.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
But then when you look at my brothers on my father's side, we look alike. You'll go, yo. So it's a weird thing. Yeah. It's a weird thing. Okay. So on that, then my dad had a woman that he had to marry within the same age. I don't want to really mess up that story, but I know that there was circumstances that my dad had to marry this woman. Okay. I mean, my father had to marry this woman.
Your biological father had to marry this woman.
Right.
Okay.
And then he had...
Was that around the same time you were born, or that was later?
No, this was when we were all... my mom was pregnant. Okay. And they were pregnant. 3 other women were pregnant at the same time. So I was pregnant.
4 altogether or 3?
3 altogether.
So your biological father had 3 women pregnant at the same time, basically had a shotgun wedding with the one. Right. Okay. Which left your mother and another woman out.
Funny that you said that. I ain't gonna get into it. Funny that you said that. Shotgun wedding. Wow. See, God is in the midst. Yeah. But that's another. So you got 3 women pregnant. You're 17 years old. Yeah. As a man. And you got 3 women pregnant, and you got to go marry one. Ooh. 17 years old.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's some.
Right.
Now, when did you meet the other 2 siblings?
So it's a funny thing because I said to my mother, well, I need to meet my other brothers and sisters because
Yeah.
I was an athlete, so I wasn't a hustler, nothing like that. I was an
Right.
athlete, so I ran track, I played football, and I thought I was a basketball player, but I wasn't. But I was a boxer.
Okay.
So those are the things that I did well: basketball, boxing, and track and field.
Right. Okay.
Were the things that I did well.
Okay.
And so with that going on, I said, and when I was out, I was dancing because my dad has a dancing background.
Okay.
My mother has a dancing background.
Okay.
So what was going on was I said, well, I want to meet my sister. I want to be dating her. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
Like, so I now this crazy thing is I knew my grandmother name, but I didn't know why I call her grandma.
Okay.
I only knew about my dad's mother as grandma.
Okay.
You know,
Okay.
and then I knew my mother's stepmother as I used to call her regular, Chris.
Right.
I never called her Grandma Chris until I got older to understand the dynamics of that. But I called her mother Grandma and Pop.
Who was actually your great grandmother?
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Wow.
Right,
Okay.
right. So I didn't really.
I might need a scorecard to keep up with all of this later on.
Man, trust me, people watching probably gonna say, I'm confused. So I understand.
Just rewind, listen to it again. It'll all make sense.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well. So this is, so 3 women pregnant at the same time. And I know we're going to segue into it. But then when I grew up to have children, I got 3 kids, but I would have had 4. I would have had 3 kids the same age.
Okay.
Now I have a daughter that's 26, that just turned 26.
Right.
And then I have a 25-year-old.
Okay.
And then I would have had a son, but he passed away. So I would have had 3 kids at the same.
So your father had 3 women pregnant basically at the same time, and you would have had 3 women pregnant.
Yeah, but I got 2.
Okay.
I got 2
All right. Well,
women pregnant at the same time.
All right.
Yeah, so at the time it was 3.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, what your father had done, you repeated.
I repeated.
Without, did you know that that's what happened with your father?
I didn't really think about it in a sense. Because, if anybody knows me and they're watching, I came from, what happened with me is, because of the dancing, and I'll say this now, when children tell you that they want to do something, if you do not agree, let them do it because maybe God has a plan. Yeah. I told my mom early, Mom, I want to be a dancer. I want to be, because, back in the day, I was a TV guy. Yeah. So I watched Fame.
Right.
And my mom resonated Fame because she was in a college program, community college program, and everybody in there was almost like Fame. Okay. So my mother was Coco. Okay. My mother was, even though she didn't sing, but she was looked like Coco. Yeah. All that. And then I had an uncle named Curly, but he wasn't my uncle, and he was like Leroy from Fame. Okay. And I said, man, I want to do this. And he was a phenomenal dancer, and I said, I want to be Leroy from Fame. Right. Because when I watched TV, I said, oh yeah, that's what I want to do. I want to be like him. Okay. And then you hear the stories about people dancing like Fred Astaire. Right. And I remember when they talked about Michael Peoples and all these, and I said, man, I want to do that. I was telling my mother that. Yeah. And she didn't allow me to really do that because she thought I just wanted to be around a girl. Yeah. So and I talk about this in the podcast. My oldest son, we sent him to basketball camp. He was at, and I forget how old he was, 8, 9, 10 years old. Sent him to UNC basketball camp with Dean Smith and everything. Right. And we probably should have been sending him to computer school. He went on, he played basketball in college and everything, but he was at a Division III school and everything. Phenomenal basketball player, very intelligent. He knows the court and everything else. Yeah. But even now, he has a degree in civil engineering. He's a professional engineer. And in his spare time for a hobby, he builds computers. So we never fostered that thing in him that he was really, and we saw it when he was young, but never, nurtured it and brought it out of him the way your mother didn't, bring that out of you, and that was something you verbally said that you wanted to do. Yeah, because she was in Hudson Community College in the 80s had a program. Yeah. and it was about dance. And my mother was in it because she was a good dancer.
Yeah.
And then later she ended up having what they call back in the day across the street from City Hall called Glover Dance Studio.
Okay.
So she was doing that. So I would be in there. But what happened with me is because she didn't let me do that, I said, "Oh, I'm gonna be a street dancer. I'm gonna do some dancing."
Yeah.
And I end up becoming, I'm a cliche Magic Mike.
Okay.
I became a male dancer.
Yeah.
Because I said, well, everybody says I'm animated, I'm funny.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna be an actor, but I'm gonna
right.
get discovered because you hear about these interesting stories about people being discovered. So I said, well, I'm gonna be discovered.
Right.
I'm gonna be discovered. So I said, okay, this is what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And I remember watching That's Incredible and watching when they have these guys. And I said, oh. So I said, Mom, one day at like 7, 8 years old, I said, those guys, they wear the bow ties and everything and don't wear no shirts. And she said, I said, that's what I'm gonna do.
Yeah.
And she said, Chippendale? I said, yeah, that's what I'm gonna do. And she was like, So every time, like, people always ask, like, what do you want to do? My brother said he wanted to be a police officer.
Right.
My brother said he wanted to do this.
Yeah.
I said, I'm gonna be a stripper.
A stripper.
And so it's powerful words in that.
Yeah.
People, they say stuff over, like my youngest brother, he people like, because he was such a fighter, like, oh yeah, that's that little hustler, he gonna be this, he gonna be that, and then later he ended up becoming a hustler.
Right.
So it's intricate on
words
what we
have
say.
power.
Words have power.
They have a lot
Words
of power.
have power.
Especially as a parent over your children.
Right.
It can make them or break them what you say to them. Now, I think I know the answer to this question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Did you plan on having 3 women pregnant at the same time?
No.
Did you plan on having any children when you had them?
No, at the time, no.
Yeah.
No, because what it was is that I said, because I watched a lot of TV, when I watched Will Smith on Barbara Walters talk about the structure of having a dad in the house, a father, just that structure, I said, well, I want to be married when I have a child.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when you become a male dancer, it's like women, they see everything, they go, okay, I like him.
Yeah.
I'm attracted to him.
Right. It's the fantasy. You're creating a fantasy. It gets in their mind, and then they want to act on it. I got you.
Right. So, and I always like older women.
Okay.
So my daughter's mother is 10 years older than me, 10 and a half years older than me.
Okay.
And then my youngest that I have, because I have a younger daughter, that's 12.
Okay.
Her mother is 10 years younger than me.
Okay.
So it's an interesting thing. And that's all because of when I got into dancing, I thought one way.
Right.
And then when I came out of dancing, I had another mindset.
Okay.
Blind leading the blind.
Right.
I had big brothers in the dance industry. I had a guy that I looked up as a brother.
Okay.
Mind you, he ended up having a lot of kids. I'm not going to put his business out there.
Not a problem.
But he ended up having a lot of kids,
So, and the podcast is all about fatherhood what kind of father. What kind of father would you say you were to each of your children? And was it different for the 25-year-olds than the 12-year-old?
Well, so here's the thing. So I had, when I lost the son.
Okay. How old was he when you lost him?
No, he was born still.
Okay, still born. Okay.
So he didn't make it all the way to term.
Right.
This was a woman I was dating, and so what ended up happening was that I ended up, because of my pain, I ended up, because I didn't understand at 22, 23 years old that she was going through something, and she wasn't being intimate with me.
Okay.
So I ran off and found another woman and was riding around with her to clubs and stuff, and ended up getting her pregnant.
Okay.
And not understanding that she was pregnant by me, because at the time she said to me, "Oh, this is not your baby. She's 7 months pregnant." Now my boy, my brother, he knew. Yeah. He said, "Oh, bro, that's yours, man." I said, "Nah," because she told me it ain't mine.
Okay.
She told me it wasn't mine.
Right.
So I was like,
why did she tell you that?
I have the slightest idea.
Okay.
I had the slightest idea at the time. She told me she wasn't, but fast forward, then I found out it was. And how I found out was that the one woman I had pregnant, she was about to have her baby. The one I was with lost her baby, and then when around in the middle of November, around Christmas time, she finally came to the club and said, "This your baby," and I was like, "You told me it wasn't." And so I didn't take ownership.
Right.
Because I didn't understand the responsibility of taking ownership for a baby. And I just had a woman that lost her baby. So how was I going to go and tell this woman?
So you were grieving the loss of one, and now this woman is telling
Honestly, the girlfriend was grieving the loss. I didn't really understand the dynamic of a grief because I didn't know anything about that.
No, and that makes sense. You know, and I talk about this all the time, that women, because they go through the 9 months of gestation, they actually have time to bond to that child before it's even born. And then they're nurtured to be mothers. And as men, we're not really nurtured that way to be a parent. And usually it's not until after the child is born, sometimes a year, 2 years before we actually start bonding with that child. So it makes sense that you weren't grieving. I can understand that where that's coming from. But so the second woman comes and says, "This is your baby," after she told you it wasn't yours.
Yeah, and then I remember my manager, who became like a mother. She was like my mother. She let me stay with her and everything, because my mother's like, "Well, you ain't going to be dancing and staying here," so I'll stay with her. She said to me, and they called me Don. So even though my dance, so it's power in words. My dance name was Don Juan. My name is Demarco. So she said, "Don, just go." And when I went to see that baby, I knew it was my baby. And she said to me, now her mother let me in. I sitting on the couch. And she said, "Here, I'm gonna leave you alone with this baby." And I said, and this is me holding the baby. I'm like, "Lord, I hope this baby do not wake up." And I looked at her and I said, "Oh." I knew this was my baby. I knew. And so when it happened, I was like, "Okay, I gotta get it together, D." So when she came in, I said, now in my heart of hearts, I knew that was my baby. I said, "Well, I ain't gonna be able to go home and tell this other woman that I got a baby. I can't tell this woman."
And she just lost one.
And not only that, but at the time, me not understanding, me being a man, this woman was 7 years older than me, and she was basically taking care of me, grooming me, shopping. So this was my life source. How am I going to go in and say this? I didn't take ownership to being a man and not taking money from women. Understand that until after I stopped dancing. Until my pastor one day had a conversation with me. She's my pastor now, but at the time she wasn't my pastor. She said, if you taking money from women, you a womanizer. And I was like, I am not a. But she was really telling me I was not being a man. And I understand that now.
That's great woman of God right there.
Right. You know, I'm blessed to be there.
So as far, taking responsibility there, but now raising your two older children, the two. How involved were you? At what age? What did you do?
At 23, what happened is the girlfriend I was with at the time said, because I tell her the story, so it's an interesting story, guys, about how my daughter was conceived. I didn't have nowhere to live. I stayed on this woman's couch. I'm in the house. I'm on a pull-out bed. We talking like me, you talking, and then she just jumps on me. Now, mind you, I was like, "Wait a minute, I ain't wearing a condom." So she on top, and she said, I said, "Wait a minute, hold." Happened, boom. And then I said, just like that, I said, "Well, what was that like?" I said, "So, we ain't wearing no protection, and you never got up. So what we gonna do?" Because I ain't ready to be no father. She said, "Well, I guess we'll figure it out when the time comes." And almost like she planned to have a baby by me, because why? I told her stuff. Not pillow talk. I told her, I said, "Well, if it's up to me, I would rather be with a family. If I got somebody pregnant, I would want to be a family.
Right.
So in her head, she like, whoa, he want to be a dad.
Okay.
He'll want to be a dad. He'll be a good dad because no matter what, he's going to stay.
Yeah.
Yeah, man.
So again, in the podcast, there's an episode, if semen were C notes.
Right.
And I talk about if your semen were $20,000, would you be so free with it, giving it away? That's the way as men we have to think. Regardless, and we have to, at the end of the day, we're responsible for what happens in our life and our seed.
Right. So I could speak to that. So at that time, me just talking on the couch, not knowing that this was going to happen, I really was not preparing to be a dad. Right. Honestly, I wasn't preparing it. It just happened. So when it happened, I remember going back to my big bro in the industry, and I said, "Yo, man," and he said, "Ha, she got you." And when he said that, I said, "What you mean?" And he said, "Well, you should try to make it work." And I was like, it didn't work. She was dealing with some trauma. Long story short, I wasn't able. Now my last daughter, I planned that, and that's the story of why I planned that off of trauma, which I'll get into that if you want.
Tell me.
Okay, so what happened is I was doing something I wasn't supposed to do. Long story short, I got shot, and I basically got the wound here. I basically shielded my face from getting shot. And so when it happened, I said, God, spare me. I said, man, I'm going to go out here. Like, I met a woman, I met a girl, just naive thinking, I'm going to have a baby. And this was a girl that I was cool with. We was talking, and I had a baby with her. And she was young. And I said, well, if God gave me life, I'm going to give life. And that's basically what happened. Like I said, this girl I was dating that I was kicking it with. I was going to her house because I was running because I got shot. Trigger, boom, trauma. It hits us differently. I went and I produced another child out of that.
All right. So today, how's your relationship with your kids?
Well, my oldest daughter, it's pretty decent. She doesn't understand the dynamic of where we are as father and daughter. Right? Because I'm not sure who, but somehow or another we lost our connection because once I found out I was her daughter, her father. I finally found out biologically that I was her father at 27. So we went to courts, it was petitioned, found out, I accepted it. And so she started to come to the house. And when she came to the house, I was in her life. I was talking to her mom, everything.
But how old was she at the time?
At the time, she was about 5 or 6. And then, I'm talking about when I actively became in her life. And then when she got about 12, she moved away. And that's when our relationship got strained. But I'm not sure what happened. We talk about it, but we've gone to be in a better relationship. My youngest daughter, though, we have a good relationship because I was there when she was born. I was around.
This is the 12-year-old.
The 12-year-old. I was around. I've been in there all her life. So she does not know. And then her mom moved away to Atlanta, so she comes up. And then next year she'll be staying with me. So I'm looking forward to that.
Good.
But to talk about the dynamics, mentally how I raise my children and how I think about it is that we are to nurture and groom our kids for life. And so how I look at that is this, right? Do right. Mentally, emotionally, do right. If you're going to do something, be responsible with how you do it. Like I'm teaching my youngest daughter. She's an inspiring painter. That's a gift that I got from my father. I know how to paint. I can pick up this. I can draw this whole thing. And it'll look good. My daughter is an actual oil painter. She paints, and she's inspired by Basquiat. She's inspired. So I'm already pushing that. You could be whatever you want to be. So she's doing that now. If you see some of her work, you would be like, wow, a 12-year-old's doing this painting. So
Okay.
I pushed that, and I tell her, I said, you could really do something with that.
Something you said is you are basically a parent for life. You never stop being a father to your children. Whatever time you missed, whatever mistakes, we all make mistakes in raising our kids. And I tell men all the time, don't feel guilty, don't feel shame.
Right.
Pick up where you are. I had one brother that I work with. He listened to the podcast, and he said he felt that he had done a poor job after listening to the podcast. I never want anybody to feel that way.
Yeah.
Just know that it's never too late. You can always jump in there and be that father, that inspiration, that provider, protector, procreator, promise keeper. Absolutely. That maybe you weren't for a period of time. You can still be that to your child. Wow. And you never want to lose that. I'm gonna end it right here. There's so much more we could talk about.
so I'm gonna say this before we end this.
Okay.
So here's the thing, right? And I'm glad you said that, right? Because what I was to my oldest daughter, I'm better and I thank God for just founding God, getting grounded in the church, because at Cathedral International with Bishop Hilliard,
amen,
I started to see a lot of modeling of men. That's why I got so many mentors now. Now I call you Big Bro Bob. You my big brother now, right? So with that being said, when I started to see that, it gave me a better structure. That's why I was at my daughter's birth. That's why now I'm speaking life into her. Because at the time I didn't know anything about that. It's funny because I didn't know what it felt like. I had a gap where I thought I was the man in the house. When I went back to church and I met Bishop, and I'm like, oh, this feels weird. But it's the same. What happened is I said, oh, when I got my first father-in-law, I said, oh, this is what it feels like to have a father.
Okay.
I didn't know what that, I didn't realize I was missing that because I buried it. Maybe because even though I didn't understand the magnitude of not having a father for so many years at 10. So from 10 to 30, 20 years of that missing void. Then coming back, fast forward now, I'm like, wait a minute, this is what it feels like. And then see, like, when I met you, they hear the stories about your dad and everybody. I'm like, oh, this is what it feels like to have a structure. This is a structure. So I thank God for putting me in this position that I'm in.
And when you know better, you do better.
Oh, man.
And when you can see it, it's important to see things modeled before you to really understand what they're about. I as great as my dad is, and I love my dad, he does some great things, I still pick up things from other people that I see as fathers. So we talk about it takes a village to raise a child. It truly does take a village, and a village of men and a village of women to pour into a child so that they fully develop into who they want to be.
Fathers are important, man. A lot of people don't understand that. Like, as we watching, even in movies now, when we watching movies, we are seeing more of a structure of a father coming in. One of the places, I mean, like, I'm a movie guy. I mean, This Is Us. When you talk about Jack and who he was, everybody said, man, I wish I had a dad like Jack. Because Jack was, listen, he ain't have a lot of money, but Jack knew how to be a father. He knew how to be a dad. He knew how to do those things.
There you go.
He was all that, even for a young man. So that's, when I watched the story, for that young man to be taken in, right? Because people don't understand. So you see African-American young man, right? What I see is people don't understand is the symbolism behind that. If they would have put another Caucasian kid there, no, he was the oddball. So they had to bring that in to show that he still is a man, and he's still going to take care of this guy. He took him in, he accepted him as his son, and so that's the thing that they had to make visual, so you can see. But the thing is that my dad did the same thing for me. I never knew another man.
And that's a powerful love when a man loves a child.
Took me right in.
That's not his own.
Met my mother when she was
just like his own.
6 months pregnant with my mother. My mother was 6 months pregnant, and he loved my mother so much. He said, I don't care. And That's the only man I ever knew
Yeah.
up to the time.
That's a
I found
powerful love story right there.
Right, right.
Folks, thank you for listening. I ask that you subscribe to the YouTube channel. Please like and share on the Facebook page and on the IG page. Manhood Podcast, provider, protector, procreator, promise keepers. Thank you all for listening.